evening. Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of the Synaptic Circle. I am your host from the West Coast, Heidi Pop, and I'm super excited to have this conversation. Why is it the Synaptic Circle? Because we are bouncing our synapses off one another. We're synchronizing our conversations, and we usually have a topic or a common thread among us. And before I introduce my guest, I just want to give a shout out to our dear friend Amy Chilson of Adventures with Amy, adventureswithamy.com. She was going to join us today, but she's doing what she does best, and that's traveling and having an adventure. So when she lands and gets settled, she might join us for another one. I'm already signing y'all up. So shout out to her. But today's guest, I'm super excited about. We met several years ago on the battlefield that is social media. And we can be found today still championing the truth. And without further ado, my first guest, hello, Mr. Nick Reeder. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for coming to do this. Thanks for coming to play.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And down below, hello, Mr. Zachary Fisher. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? That was a great intro, by the way.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Terrence B. of Truth Seekers. He popped that off for me. We got a couple visuals we're going to add a little later, but yeah, I'm excited. It's happening.
Yeah, it looks professional. Yeah, it's nice.
You know, here we go. Oh, and there he is. It's Mr. B in the house. Hi, Mr. B. He's in Oz. So my goodness, well, you're up early, Mr. B. So he's over there. I wanted to say hi. So fellas, we met on social media. I know we're Facebook friends. And I am curious to kick it off. When is it that you found yourself on the battlefield? When did you start speaking out?
You want me to go first or Nick?
Yeah.
You want to?
Fight over it. No.
I'll
Go ahead,
start.
Zachary. Yeah.
Well, for me, it started shortly after Mr. T was elected in the first election. And this is something that probably most people do not know, is that I was actually a registered Democrat back in the early days. I voted for the original deceiver, Mr. O. And, and I really believed in what he was telling, right? And I wanted the change that he had promised, and clearly that did not happen. And after that, I got disenfranchised with all of the elections. So I didn't actually vote in 2016. And I'm from a heavily blue state, which is Maryland, and not a popular opinion to have, to be a Republican. And shortly after he was elected, I started to see that his promises were actually happening. And I noticed that there was a common theme on Facebook within the small group of friends that I had that were actual real life friends. I had about 600 friends at the time, and there were people that I knew from high school and so forth. And there was a common theme of, bashing. And I finally, something inside of me finally said, I got to speak up and say, how is it that you guys believe this? Like, everything, you might not like him as a person, but the things that he's saying are actually coming to fruition, and he's at least is accomplishing what he had promised. And that's when I figured out when having an opinion like that was not something that was accepted around here. I was called Nazi. I was disowned by every friend that I had known. And it was a painful process, right? It was like, all I'm doing is expressing an opinion. You guys are treating me like a demon, right? I had friends that were all different colors, and all of a sudden, guys that were holding my babies were calling me racist, and it really was a difficult point in my life. Let's just say that, and that was probably when the darkest portion of my life happened. I was pretty much alone. I was going through a divorce, and I was struggling to find myself and a purpose in my life. And next thing I know, I ended up meeting a few friends. I probably met Nick around that time, but actually at that point, I'm not sure Nick and I probably liked each other that much.
We still don't. What are you talking about?
On the battlefield, and those were the days when we were in it, right? We were yelling.
Yeah.
And
that was the yelling, right? That was the like the mudslinging, and it got a little
that was nasty, and it felt awful. But I was thinking about it even earlier today after you sent me some of these questions, and it was a really, really important time in all of this was really the fact that there was people that finally stood up and said, enough's enough, at least give the guy a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that would be the wayshowers, the ones that finally said, I've had enough. I know it's not a popular opinion, and quite honestly, people were getting canceled at the time. People were losing jobs. People were doing, a lot of weird things. So that's when I met Nick, and Nick was out there banging heads with the best of them, right? And we slowly through this whole process transitioned into an understanding of well, actually, let me rewind. That was at the point when Q started to drop on back channels.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to see that there was something a little bit different going on, and I wasn't sure I finding Q, to be honest with you. I guess it might have found me. And all of a sudden I started to find people that I could have conversations with, and that was an amazing experience, right? And we were decoding things. We were going through some of the darkest corners of the world and seeing things that were very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I lost many nights of sleep.
Yeah.
I was probably sleeping maybe an hour or two during the height of the Q drops. And lost pretty much everybody in my life. I was dating my current wife now at that time, and we ended up actually breaking up numerous times because what we were doing was, not only was it not popular, it was quote unquote dangerous, right? There was at that point it was are we going to be rounded up, and am I putting her and her family at risk, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, I ended up leaving or leaving Maryland. We broke up the last time, and I moved to Florida for a year. When I was in Florida, I had somebody reach out to me that I was friends with, and she said, "Why don't you start a Q group?" And I said, "No, that's not really my thing." And 5 minutes later, she messaged me back, and she goes, "Here's your group. See what happens with it." And I was like, "Okie like, I don't even know what that means, right?" So next thing I know, I'm involved in a group. I believe that group was called Q Sent Me, which was it grew relatively large, and then I had a disagreement with the girl that started the group, and she ended up throwing me out. And then that's when I created the QAnon group, which ended up being one of the most influential groups that I can think of as far as the Q movement goes. That's just me saying that, and with pride, right? Mm-hmm. I had noticed a difference in the world, right? And I noticed you had some Q groups like the Great Awakening group, and there were large groups, and I realized that there was people in a spiritual community that were talking about a coming event. I noticed people in a political group that were talking about a coming event. I noticed the Q group was talking about a coming event. I noticed a religious group was also, religion was talking about an upcoming event, right? And all of a sudden, it was like pieces of a puzzle came together, and I realized, something's happening here, right? Like, this is different. So the group that we created, it incorporated and allowed a safe space for all of that conversation, right?
Yep.
And I think that the group grew to about 80,000 people in 3 months, which was wild, right? And we had 40 people working between moderators, and this is what I found to be the most amazing thing was that during this time I was finding people that were highly spiritual to surround me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of the most powerful people I've ever met were all of a sudden moderators of my group, and so many different opinions and views, and we were all there for one reason, and it was to expose the darkness of this world, and that's what we did.
You brought it to the light. Yeah.
Right. And it was a tough time. I mean, we were attacked. We had Antifa after us. We had the whole gamut being thrown at us. And but through this time we were meeting people that were sent to teach me spirituality, right? Because I was not a spiritual guy.
Okay, so that's when that kicked in then?
Yeah, and I was not a spiritual guy at all, right? And next thing I know, I'm being taught about spirituality by some of the most powerful people you know, right? And I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I really buy it, right? And all of a sudden, my path just lit up, right? And it was time to figure out spirituality. And I spent a year down in Florida where I did my shadow work to the nth degree. I looked at all my shit, I unpacked it, I dealt with it, and at the end of the year, I sat down for an ayahuasca journey, two nights, and that's when I found God again, right? I was taken to a place, that's a whole nother story. It would take too long to explain it, but that's when I found God, right? And about a week later, I turned myself over to God and I said, use me as your vessel. And all I ask for is for you to take care of my family, right? And little did I know what that meant, right? And I was sent back to Maryland shortly thereafter and reconnected with Sue, and we were married shortly thereafter. And it was there's a lot to the story, and I don't want to take up the whole time talking about it.
No, it's fabulous. I will ask you more about the story. I love that. You gave us that arc there. And what about you, Mr. Neal? Where did you first find yourself going, wait a second, and digging your heels in and getting louder?
So for me, I'd known that the media was lying to me and like all of that stuff since probably, mid 2000s or something like that. And no one even talked about it. Like if you brought it up at work, people look at you like you're crazy. The media doesn't lie, all this stuff. So I just stuffed it down, didn't say anything. And, the short of it is I was like, okay, there's something wrong with this world and I know it. And I've been doing everything I can to prove myself wrong. Like I want to be wrong and no one could answer my questions. Then I was like, okay, well, I knew the people in office. It was Bush and Obama at the time. And I was like, they're the same people. It's the same agenda. And I was like, I'm not going to get involved until I believe someone in office is going to change this. And then, Trump came in and I was like, this is interesting. And I heard him talk and I heard him speak. I'm like, there's something different about this guy. When I saw him walk on stage the first time, like I felt something. And I was like, this guy's real and legit. I don't know what he's about, but there's something different about him. Anyway, so like I started paying attention then. And I was like, I started speaking out a little bit here and there. You started to realize that, at the time I had like 100 people on my Facebook page and like no one really paid attention. And what really happened was I started to talk about politics. You pick up some of the people. And then Parkland happened. And I started getting, and Q was a little bit before that. And then Parkland happened. And I already had started to get a little bit of a circle around me from networking with people. And I made a post asking questions about Parkland and I got banned. And in that moment, that was the moment I was like, go fuck yourself. This is bullshit. All I'm doing is asking questions and you're going to ban me. Everything that I had heard was true and had happened to me with censoring and banning and all that stuff. I'm like, holy crap, this is all true and this happens. I said, someone needs to speak up. So at the time, I created a second Facebook account and I started posting everything that I wanted to. Next thing I know, like people just started flooding to my page. I started networking with people. It's like, people just kept coming to my page. I'm like, this is like, there's something going on here. People are finally paying attention to this now.
Like a revolution, yeah.
Yeah, so then like we just started, it just snowballed from there. And then the one day, I'm not gonna go deep into this story, but the one day I got the idea. I said, dude, I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, dude, I said, how about getting a group of us? Because I had a big following on Facebook, and so did he, and so did a couple other friends and stuff like that. I said, how about we get a group of people together and we go to Twitter and we bomb them with memes in an organized fashion. And he's like, yes. So he said, let's do it. I said, all right. So we got another guy who had another large following. Like, I'm not going to drop names, but like some people know who they are. And next thing I know, like we created a group and I was like, okay, we're going to get like 10 people doing this. It's just for the LOLs, on a weekend, whatever. Next thing I know, there's 1,500, there's 2,000 people.
I was one.
Were you? Yeah, you were in there.
That's why I joined Twitter. That was the only reason. I was on set going, I'm trying to figure out my new account on Twitter. I have a meme war to attend.
That was such an absolutely phenomenal period of time. Everyone was just so energized of doing stuff. And like the first night, there might have been, a couple hundred people doing it. Next thing I know, we had like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people a night doing it. Every night at the same time, dropping memes on whoever, like the person that we wanted to. And at a time, in an hour, we would drop 50,000 memes. We had enough human beings that were that passionate and that pissed off and that, just passionate about it, that they were doing 50,000 memes in an hour on a Twitter page.
People I don't think understand the significance of the meme, right?
Oh, it's powerful.
The meme was powerful because the algorithms could not catch it, right?
Nope,
they couldn't read the words. I believe it can now, from what I understand. But at that point, it could not read the words. So we were able to share truth without being censored to a degree.
And what we would do is we would grab the most popular hashtags of the day. So when like just regular people would go to Twitter and click on a regular hashtag, they would see our memes and stuff. We would go to the post, the most recent post of someone like, Clinton or, I'm not going to, like a whole bunch of other people that were involved in that stuff. And so it was their most recent tweet. So any normal person, regular person in the world who was following those guys would go there just to look at their Twitter page, and they would just see this barrage of memes and information about them. And it it was groundbreaking. Like there was people, General Flynn was involved. He saw us doing it. He knew we were doing it. I think it got all the way up to Trump. It got to the social media. It got to the mainstream media was talking about us. We had CNN analysts following us, talking about us and shit. That was a wild ass time.
It was so nuts. Yeah.
And
that was literally, it had to have been one of the largest awakening periods ever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I know there's a lot of conversation about Q and whether Q is good or bad or whatever. The simple fact of it is that what it did was it taught us first how to use memes to get a message out, right? And it taught us to discern and how to find information. And on top of it, it taught you where to look at times, right? And most importantly, it taught us our power, right? Like we were able to wake up enough that we were able to see the truth, right?
Right.
And whatever that means at this point, I don't know, right? But it had the point of waking up mass amounts of people, right? And it worked.
But let me ask you something. During like the meme wars and, that particular time, were you going out there hard aggressively, or were you Like my delivery was tongue in cheek, because I was like, I'm just
Oh,
Heidi. Did you know they
I
eat
was,
children? But it was the delivery.
Nick and I were aggressive, right?
I was
Oh,
straight
okay.
to their face. This
I knew
is
you
It
were
was
what
gonna be
it
bad.
is.
aggressive.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was bad.
This is what it is, and I don't care what you have to say.
And I
Okay.
think,
So we were
I think,
opposite in that sense.
It
no, but
was a
listen, I
punch in
think
the
it had
mouth
to,
approach. That's what it was. Punch in the
it,
mouth.
it had to be that way though, because we were breaking through a lot of programming, right? And I
I
think
get
that
Yeah.
it.
in order to do so, you had to stand strong and speak up, right? And that's what we did, and it was a lot of uncomfortable conversations, right? And you know, when you confront a large group of people that have the same opinion, they tend to pile on, right? And that happened a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, that would happen to friends out here, and I'm like, who is it? And I'd go on their page and I'd start meme. But I was really cheeky. I kept it pretty cheeky. And when I
Yeah.
went to when someone came at me toe to toe, I had the art, and I probably learned this on set, of diffusing it. So when someone came at me really hard, I got to like just get in their heart a little bit. So my
I just
next
got
question, I
harder.
know we have so much to say about it though, but my next question is, what made you go soft? Because you both have the tenderest posts now. They're just so heart-centered,
Okay.
and humanity wins, and stay in the light, and have faith. Where
So
did
for
that
me,
happen?
it also is, continuing my story just real quick. What I learned after all the meme wars and stuff was that during it, so we would go we would go after like Clinton and stuff like that. And I would notice with my son, who was like 3 years old at the time, absolutely no idea what we're doing, having no idea anything. The nights we would go after people like Clinton and stuff like that, he would look terrified. He had no idea what we were doing. He would walk up into my room and have this scared look on his face, like something was after him, that he didn't know what was going on, and would
Oh,
cling to me. Obviously, he's
oh,
3 years old. He has no idea what we're doing. And then days when we would like go to like Trump's Twitter page and like thank him and stuff, he'd run around the house like nothing was wrong. So I started questioning this stuff because I started picking up on this pattern. I'm like, what is going on in this world? How does he know it? So I started asking questions and going to what Zach was saying when it comes to the spiritual thing. That was my real spiritual awakening. I was like, wow, we are not alone in this world. Something is going on. So then that led me into like going through that whole revelation and asking all of those questions and understanding humanity at a deeper level and at a whole nother higher perspective. And through all of that, I did a lot of healing internally and stuff. And I started to realize that, at the time in 2016, 2017, you needed to go out there with brute force and put this message out. And then I started to realize that's not what we're here for. That love, affection, compassion, and understanding of other people is far more important, and why I feel that I'm here in this world. So like that's what, and I started to really understand that, and I started to understand that there is another way of going about things besides, like the old way of living, scarcity, attacking, fighting, anger, aggression, stuff like that, that there is another way of going about things. And that's what I started to learn. And I started to put out that message. And I felt that the message of politics, yes, it's very important. Like at the time, it was extremely important. But I feel I started to understand that if humans can learn to love each other and to understand each other and to learn to communicate, politics don't matter. That when
yes.
you have a community and a country or a being that is loving, compassionate, and understanding of people, politics don't matter. Politics will naturally begin to sort themselves out because you will create a humanity that doesn't need that stuff. They don't need to be governed by other people. They don't need to. So that's why my message changed, honestly. And I got tired of fighting. I got tired of being attacked. I got tired of all that stuff. And I started to understand, the more you attack people, the more you attack the mirror, the people in front of you, the more people will attack you. So you think all these people are attacking you? You have to look at yourself and be like, am I attacking people? And as soon as you see that you're attacking people, more people are just going to attack you. And I started to really understand that. And I was like, okay, I need to go about this differently. And as I started to go about it differently, I started seeing other people. I started to see different views of the world, different understandings. And I was like, these people are loving, compassionate, understanding. They know the world's fucked up, but they don't have to go out there and tell everyone about it all day, every day. And also at the same time, I started to see that there are so many people talking about this now. I don't need to be out there doing that shit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
like I can be having these conversations. Like I kind of looked at it like a business where like I was like a grunt man, and then like I kind of feel like I don't need to do that shit anymore. Like there's so many people involved now. There's so many people talking about it. I don't need to go out there and fight those fights anymore.
Mm-hmm. Boom. I think that was beautiful what you said too when you brought up the children, because that started my trip, but that was earlier, before
Yeah.
45, because we were in California, our medical rights were getting taken away. So I started to go, and I did go pretty aggressive in those days. But I did hit a point where I said earlier I was cheeky and it was all in my delivery, but I was still, I was still bothering people, because even my sister, who I was very estranged from at the time, would be like, Heidi, people aren't going to listen to you if you call them a sheeple. Stop calling everybody sheeples and normies and muggles. And I'm like, they're not going to listen that way. So I soften up the delivery a little bit, make it stick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, wow.
And just one thing real quick with the spiritual thing
please.
is for people to understand who haven't gone through it or don't know about it, or, maybe they do know about it. If a demonic entity, an evil entity cannot get to you, they will get to your children, they will get to your wife, they will get to your husband, they will get to other people around you to affect their mood. So then their mood is affected and negative in nature, and then that will affect your mood. So that's something for people to really understand. It's very important.
1,000%. And we have to give our shout out. Hi, Amy. We were just talking about you. I'm glad you're safe. She's landed, she said. And
awesome.
Just landed. So she's all good. Well, not quite settled, but we love you, Amy. I'm loving this ride already. It's so funny. I'm already like crossing off like half my questions. But can I jump just a tiny bit? Because I know we'll thread through everything. But as far as I know, you've both took that spirituality and the light in your heart and everything, and gathering the others, and you started hosting. I know, Zachary, you have a big event in Florida. That's just getting the people together is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, that actually happened totally organically. My wife and I, during, I guess it was 2021, what was it? We were 21, I guess it was. We decided to go on a vacation. We were looking to go on a vacation in Maryland to the beach, and looked up places, and they were quite pricey. So she ended up looking down in Florida, and we found a place for the month. We rented it for the month, and this was during the period when nobody was flying. Everybody was against mask and wouldn't get on a plane because you had to wear a mask.
That's a good way.
So we were like, all right, well, we're going to be down there. Let's see, and I had lived in Florida. I said, let's see if anybody wants to meet out on the beach, and we'll spend a day out on the beach. And so I put an invitation on Facebook, and it kind of got a mind of its own, right? Next thing you know, we had about 100 people drive from as far as 3 days away to show up.
That's awesome.
And it has grown ever since. And it's an amazing event. And this year we're having it July 13th and 14th, and it's grown so much that we have. It has not been announced yet, but somebody else is planning an event for a secret space program event in the coming days before. So we're going to piggyback each other, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be one of the bigger years.
That's Brian and James, right?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay, I don't want to announce it. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, okay. You're right. You're right.
Hi, Jessica. Oh gosh, I love it. Yeah, when we were talking the 17th letter. Well, we've already said it. Fuck it.
Yeah, we're in trouble already.
The queue was going down. That's when I started. A bunch of moms met each other on a DTI group and doing all the drops and intel. And we're like, who's in person? Like, who wants to talk about this? We can't sleep. And then we started hosting these gatherings. And then it was actually by 2020, we was going a couple years of doing it. And now it's kind of hosting online. So I kind of hung up the in-person thing and I'm doing online. But it's huge because I'm so grateful for our global connections. But when you get together, there is an activation. So do you both feel that when you find another like mind in person? Not to dismiss all of this beauty that we have online when meeting one another, but there is something about meeting in person and amplifying that much brighter.
We have to start doing it in person. Like,
yeah.
I know that there's this common thought that light workers are spread geographically on purpose, and I kind of believe that to a degree, but at the same time, I think that the connection is what's important because we do activate each other. You know, I find people all the time, and I'm activating them at restaurants. And it's definitely on purpose, and they're finding me, right? And it sounds crazy, but it happens more often than not.
Yeah.
But in the real world, our goal here is to be our own saviors, right? We need to
thank you
create the world that we desire to live in, and if we're sitting behind a computer, we're not really ever going to do that. Right.
Yes.
We know that AI is not our friend. It's here to keep us locked in our homes. Right. And that's why a lot of people are stuck on their phones. I'm guilty of it. We're all doing the death scroll, and we're, who knows what we're really accomplishing. Right. But through all this, we do learn what our purpose is. Right. And, we all have a different purpose, and when we meet is when we're able to share our purpose, and then at that point we can connect with those that we're supposed to be working with, much like this, right? I've seen you, Heidi. I don't know how much, we haven't talked a lot, but I've always known that you and I were supposed to do something at some point, right?
And I felt it. That's why Nick, Amy's going, oh, I want to be there.
And the funny thing about Nick is that, like, literally, I looked at Nick as a meter as to the awakening, and because
absolutely.
And this is not a competition or anything like that, but I had gone through my awakening, my spiritual awakening before Nick did, and I saw Nick starting his spiritual journey, and I would check in with him every once in a while, and he would think, he would respond as though I was pretty much nuts. You remember that, don't you? And I'd be like, hey, they tell you who you are yet? And he'd be like, oh, what you talking about, right?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, dude, I'm good.
And then shortly thereafter, I saw him. He was invited to speak at a Starseed event, and I was like, is that Nick Reeder? Like, Nick Reeder's speaking at a Starseed event?
So, hold on a second. Co-hosted it with the lady who was running it. I saw her in the comments. A shout out to Christy. Pilot. Thank you. You were awesome. I had an amazing time there.
But
that's so beautiful.
Like I've watched Nick, and honestly, I've told my wife this, is that I look at it. I was watching him as a barometer as to, he seemed like a younger version of myself, right? He was doing the same things I was, and now all of a sudden he was also waking up and figuring out that there's something way bigger, possibly even galactic, about this whole thing, right? And that's when Nick and I actually, I guess, befriended each other above and beyond the few messages that we had. And he lives about an hour and a half from me, and
really,
we met him about a little over a year ago. We stopped by his house after we were up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We stopped by his house, and then a few months later, he came down and spent the night down here. And and the conversation that we had was very deep. Let's just say that. And
oh my God, yeah,
it was a great conversation, and we were getting to points where we both were realizing we had gotten to an understanding that was not talked about, right? And I'm not sure that a lot of people have that understanding, right? And it was with purpose, right?
And it was very personal conversations as well, uplifting, empowering, telling each other what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. It was almost like an older brother type conversation, where it's like, hey man, you're doing this right. Hey, you're messing up here. And also Sue thought she would get out of it, and she got involved. She got
She
it
got
from
pulled
both of
into it.
us.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
And that's, I mean, to go back to what Nick had explained why he or how he had softened, right? And my softening happened between this ayahuasca experience. I mean, I can get into it really quick. When I drank the ayahuasca, I was approached by an entity called that people refer to as Mother Ayahuasca, and she asked me if I wanted to see the Akashic records. The first night, I was able to ask a question, and it was like a slideshow. It would slide in front of me, an answer, almost like you're doing a Google search, right? And I sat there for hours, and I was like, "This is amazing! This is amazing! Like, why doesn't everybody want to do this, right?" So at the end of the night, all of a sudden I got this message, and it came in red neon writing, and it was like, "You got this! You got this! You got this!" And I was like, "That was the most." It was like the most empowering, endearing, most supportive feeling I've ever had in my whole life, right? It was a love that I'd never heard, and it was like it told me I could handle anything, and I didn't know what it meant. So the second night, I sit down for the ayahuasca, and the shaman comes up and he says, "What's your intention of this tonight?" And I said to him, "I want Mother Ayahuasca to kick my ass." And he looked at me, he goes, "You better be careful what you wish for." And I said, "I don't want to do this again." So I literally surrendered to the ordeal, and I laid back into meditation, and before my head hit the mat, I was gone. And I ended up on the other side, and it was a place that I would call the Garden of Eden. And it was whimsical music playing, and it was the most beautiful colors, and it was almost like gears that were moving around, and whimsical colors and whimsical like flute music playing in the background. And then I look around, and all of a sudden I see that there was people sitting in this. It was like a park setting, and they were like sitting in the grass, and an entity would come to them and sit with them, and all of a sudden I realized where I was, and it was a place where people were transitioning, right? And these beings were helping them understand what was happening, that they were leaving this realm and going into another. And it was almost like I was standing behind a sliding glass door, which I would consider maybe the veil. And I'm like looking through this door at this area, and I'm like, all of a sudden it dawned on me, holy shit, I'm not supposed to be here. 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 And I freaked out, and I sat up, pushed myself up on the mat, and I was like, nope, 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 nope. Not doing that, not doing that. And then all of a sudden I'm approached by Mother Ayahuasca, the entity again. She goes, "Do you want to see the Akashic records?" And I said, "Sure, that was awesome. I want to do that." And she goes, "No, do you want to see them all?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." Next thing I know, all I could explain, it was like, started out beautiful, like every memory, every thought, every emotion, past, present, future, was all coming into me, right? And I was like, "This is amazing, this is amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing." And then all of a sudden it was like starting to turn into like a river, right? And it was like, holy shit, there's a lot. And then it became so much that I panicked, right? And it was like, I can't stop. And then literally I saw my brain right in front of me, and it twisted, and I saw a spark. It was like it short circuited or reset. I'd say it was probably reset. So, there's a lot more to that story, but after this all happened, it takes a while to integrate back into the real world, right? And I realized what had happened there was that, I spent so much time when I was diving into these rabbit holes, searching for answers, searching, that I realized I didn't need to know it all, right? It was kind of it was too much, right? And you get to a point where it was like none of it really matters, right? It matters to get you to an understanding that the world's not what it is, right? But then I got to a point where I was okay not knowing everything, right? And that's when my soul literally went to rest, right? And at that point, it was a natural progression. And I think all of this, the Great Awakening, is literally a pathway that it starts at. You're realizing that the world is not what you think it is. And then you progressively keep stepping up this ladder, and you're eventually at the bottom of all the rabbit holes is God, right? And once you find God, you literally you go to peace, right? Yeah. Do I have hard days? Yeah, I have plenty of hard days, but most days I'm at peace, right? When I have hard days, it's typically the people around me are healing, right? And I'm having to hold space for them and help them as much as I possibly can, right? So, in my life, I did so many bad things as a younger version of me that I think now I'm working off my karma, right? And that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Is I try to help people find themselves, right? Because if I can teach one person to have that feeling that I have after that event or after the ayahuasca experience, like I think I've won, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
And I
love.
think that's what we're here for, is to, as wayshowers, is to show these, show everybody else. I mean, it's not I don't think I'm better than anybody. I'm not here to be God. I'm not here to be anything. What I'm here to do is show people the way to be happy, right? And the only way that I can do that is by making myself happy, right? And then in hopes that other people will see the same thing happening, right?
Yes. There's the way
Yeah.
show. And like you were saying, Nick, when you put it together by watching your son and the
Yeah.
frequency you were emitting, he was probably picking up on. But you also, it sounds like that's the time where you took yourself off screen and then out into the real world, into the 3D, and started shifting. Is that what I mean? I feel like you both made that connection of like, okay, I'm done this work here. Now I got to put it
Yeah.
to action and with the
Yeah.
human.
So then I started I started going out to rallies a lot more and stuff like that. And I started talking with people, and I started to like basically not really be afraid of speaking the truth of what I felt, because I started to understand the world at a deeper level. I started to understand that like the physical world, yes, it's important, but it's not the real truth of everything of why we're here. And like Zach said, once you start to surrender yourself to God and you start to understand God, you start to understand energetics, you start to understand life, you start to understand that what you are putting out, you are getting in return. And like you're saying, is that and Zach said it as well, at least something close, is that if all you do is stay online and just talk online, you're not creating. Like, we are creators. We were supposed to be here to create. And what really flipped in my mind was the day I realized that if I want a better world, I need to live a better life. I need to create my world, my life, to be a better life, to show other people that it is possible, that you can go from like, people who don't know me, like, if you follow me, especially after I started get out of politics, I started talking about my personal life. I started talking about like very in-depth, vulnerable posts of shit I was going through, and I did it. It's like a way for a release for me, but also I continue my journey to show people that you can go to the depths of hell inside of yourself. You can see the very bottom of yourself, and you can get yourself out of it. Like Zach was talking about being the Wayshower or whatever. Like, I don't look at myself that way. I look at myself as like, this is who I am. And like, so I have a weird way of looking at myself, is that like, I look at myself from a third person perspective, and I talk about what I say. I talk about my human. I talk about my brain. I talk about shit that I've been through and who I am, but that's not who I am at the same time. It's just, this is what my brain is doing right now. This is what I'm doing to overcome it. I don't know if this is going to work. And then later on, I start to show the results of the work that I have done. Like, I've gone from a point of, just not even wanting to get out of bed, having days like that, and just,
Mhm.
so much childhood trauma and shit that I have been through, so much work that I have gone through, and I put it out there. I tell people, I'm like, this is what happened to me. This is what it caused. Like, my brain works very analytically as well, as that I need to understand what happened, and I have a way of being able to speak that to people. And people so many times are like, this is what I was thinking, and you put it into words that I couldn't do. So like, that's just kind of, I realize that's kind of my gift. And part of the reason that we're here is we all have a gift. Every single person has a gift, but so many times we are so afraid of it. We aren't afraid of failure. Most of us are more afraid of how powerful we actually are.
Yes.
We are
Yeah, success is scary, man.
Yes.
It's like I'm saying it right now because I am terrified of what my full potential is, because you get like glimpses into your full potential. Like, damn, if I lived every day like this, I don't know if I could handle it, because it feels too much, because we've lived such like small lives by like, limiting beliefs and self-doubt and all of this stuff. So as you start to overcome it, you start to put yourself out there and you start to win. And then what happens is you start to get scared of it. And then you start to like, and you like shrink yourself down. It's such a
self-sabotage.
Yeah,
self-sabotage, fear of own success. Yep. But
it is. I mean, it's an absolutely scary thing.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But
sometimes
you have to keep going. Like, you have to realize that you are put on this earth you are supposed to be happy. You are supposed to live a loving life. Like, we came from a place of unconditional love where our soul returns after we live this life. Our soul returns to a place of unconditional love. And we come to this place to understand love that is under conditions, and to fight through all of that. I feel to show people that it is possible to love unconditionally, to be able to learn how to do that, even though it's freaking hard, because human beings piss you off. Like, some are just just like and like, so you have to learn boundaries. You have to learn all sorts of things like that. Like I used to be a people pleaser. I would do everything to make people happy, but I realized it was a weird thing. Like, it wasn't manipulation, but in a way it was manipulation, because if the people around me felt better and they were happy, then I felt happy. So my brain helped other people become happy around me, because I felt miserable if they did. So if they felt good, I felt good. Like, there's so many mind fucks in this world that are just weird things like that you don't realize that. And then it's just one day you're like, holy shit. Like, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, I'm a people pleaser because I have weak boundaries. I don't want to stand up for myself. I don't believe in myself. I don't do this. Like, there's so many questions. And that's a lot of the stuff that I post about, because my sole mission is to empower people, and for people to be like, damn, I am the cause of all of my misery in my life. I am the cause of all of the success in my life as well. I am the cause of literally freaking everything in your life. And if you take full accountability and full responsibility for your life, you can turn your life around, and you can become anything you damn well please. And if the only person holding you back is yourself, and I want people to understand that shit.
This is the school of the hardest school is Earth, right? The hardest planet. And that's why, everybody that's here is equally as powerful, right? Just in their own ways. And I believe our sole mission is to start from the bottom of the trenches and find our way to the top, right? And it's all a mission to find our own personal happiness, and at some point, and that's the scariest point, is, can I live a perfect life, right? Like, is that even possible? Right? Because I kind of like tiptoeing the line, right? I kind of like not being perfect all the time, right? But are we on this path where you're in heaven and everybody's perfect all the time? Like, that to me is almost scary, right?
Oh, for sure. And what is truly authentic? Is it really that perfect? Like Aunt Cake said before,
right?
People relate when you speak the truth. Absolutely. Authenticity is everything. And like you were saying, Nick, even showing the raw, real, downtrodden, difficult, dark days helped more people than you realize, because it's authentic and it's human. And that's the thing. Like,
you go out there and you look at all these social media influencers. They're all like Ooh, every day is so odd. Like, only thing you see from them is the perfect shit. You don't
Yes.
see
They're like,
the stuff
what do you
behind the scenes. So then it makes you feel like you're like, oh, like you feel bad about yourself when you have a bad
Yep.
day. Like, oh, this guy that I follow never has any bad days. Dude, we all have shitty days. And I have
Yeah.
no problem telling people that. I have no
Mm-mm.
problem showing people that. It's just, it's real, it's authentic, it's being human beings. And like, it's not sitting in your victimhood. It's not sitting there pouting like, oh, all of this happened. No, it's, hey, I'm going through this shit right now, but I'm going to overcome it, and I'm going to teach, I'm going to show you how to overcome it, and I'm going to tell you all of the lessons that I have learned through all of this shit. So hopefully you don't have to go through it, or you can learn to go through it. Because what I learned, and also a lot of times on your page, people on your page and people that follow you or people that listen to you, they're going through the same things that you are. They resonate with you for a reason. Just like anybody that I follow, anyone that Zach follows, anyone that you follow, Heidi, you connect with them on some level for some reason, and guaranteed they're going through the same shit that you are going through. And I started to realize that, and I was like, I'm just gonna put out what I want to put out. And also at the same time, like, Facebook kind of in a way became a support system for me. And like on my page, it's like it's a support system. It's people that, like, I know people tell me their stories in the comments, and then like other people like connect with them and comment back to them, and like it's a healing place that I feel I have created on my page. And I feel I love it because we all help each other, we all empower. Like if you
Mhm.
followed me like 3 years ago when I was talking politics, I'd post something, then you'd get like 50 comments of people talking shit on each other. And like you'd
Yeah.
have to fight that off. Now I don't get any of that stuff. And I notice it's because of the message I put out. So like what you do put out, you will get back in return. It's as
Yes.
simple as that.
It's so simple. That's the crazy thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
all these distractions and things, but when you get back to the simplicity of it all, um, but I'm not even finishing that thought. What are your thoughts though with the shift? To me, that's what I feel like the shift is the shift within, and then we spread that light out. Do you have any thoughts on well, I guess you shared we're talking that's what we're talking about, the shift. Okay. Just keep going. Scratch that
So
one
like
off.
so and like anything else, it's, if you're a sad, miserable person inside, when you look out into the world is literally a mirrored reflection of your internal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is nothing in this world. I always use this example because I think most of us can relate. Nothing in this world has a built-in value except for the value you put in it. Like pit bulls, they are a very divisive being. Like you could see a pit bull and 50 people can see a pit bull. 20 people are terrified of this pit bull. It doesn't matter. The pit bull can be sitting there wagging its tail. They're terrified of the pit bull. Another 20 people would absolutely love the pit bull and walk up to it. It doesn't matter. So that is a mirrored reflection of how you feel inside of yourself. It is just a pit bull. It is
Good
not, it is
analogy.
not doing anything. It's sitting there staring at you, not doing a damn thing. But the way you feel about pit bulls is what you see in that pit bull. It's the same thing when you go out into the world. If you think this world is terrible, all you will see is terrible people in this world. If you think this world is great, all you will see is great people in this world. What you see outside of you, it's inside of you. Like
Mm,
anybody who's been on this healing journey, like I've dealt with depression my whole life. I can pick out anybody in this world who deals with depression, no matter how well they mask it, because I've been doing it my whole life. You pick up
Mm-hmm.
on the subtle cues, those subtle clues that they do, the little mannerisms, the way that they hide themselves. And anyone can relate to this with anything that they personally go through.
mhm.
If you never went through that, you wouldn't see that in the person. So it's,
Yep.
you are reflecting yourself back to you at every point of your life.
Oh, that was beautiful. Because that's everything. That's what it is. It's
and
perspective.
and
Yeah.
when you can understand that, you get so much insight into yourself. And if you reflect on yourself every single day and like damn, I thought this person was judgmental. Well, then there must be something judgmental inside of
It's
me.
actually
Yeah,
you judging them.
yeah, yeah, you were judging them, or it's mostly you judging yourself all of the time. And that's how you
Mhm.
think everyone is judgmental. You think everyone is mean because you are mean to yourself or you are mean to other people. If it's not inside of you, you cannot see it from someone else. And it's just an opportunity to not feel bad about yourself, just to be like, damn, okay, so I do need to work on this. Maybe if I need to work on this, I need to heal from it. And then at the same time, once you work on it and you heal from it, that now becomes a gift for you. That becomes something you can give to the world. You can see that person who is, looking around at other people, and you can tell that they are judging other people, and maybe you can help them, or maybe you can help a friend. And the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about humanity and human behavior, the more you can help your friends, and the more you can help loved ones, and the more you can help other people around understand yourself. I think understanding myself has been the best thing that I've done. It's the most fucking, one of the most traumatic and terrible experiences to go through until you reach the bottom. But once you do and you start coming back up, it's a journey that I'm very glad that I've gone through. And I still go through it. Like I'm not like I have miserable days, I have terrible days, but I have a lot more good days now than I ever have in my life.
Once you choose to wake up, right? And that's what we're the people say we're the chosen ones, right? And they put a lot of ego into that. And the way I look at it is that we choose to wake up, right?
Yeah.
We choose to not stay in a state of slumber like we've done many, many times before, right? This go around might be the time that we get it right? Like, so our goal is every single day is to make ourselves more like Yeshua than we were the day before, right? And that's what I do in my life. Is every day I look at how do I become a little bit better than I was yesterday, right? And if I keep doing that, my life is improving, right? Like a lot of the family
to improve, to be better, it has no choice.
Right. And a lot of the family that I had lost through all this, they're starting to come back into my life. They're seeing that, he's not the same miserable person that he used to be, and he's kind of nice to be around now, right? So I've reestablished relationships with my dad, my brother to certain degrees, right? They're still sleeping, so I keep them at arm's length, but it's nice to see that they can see the change in myself, right? So that is what we are here to do is heal ourselves, right? And
as you soften yourself, Zach, they will soften themselves in their demeanor to you. It's the same thing with
Yes.
That's 100%.
That's what I found. As I soften myself, people are not so abrasive. They're not so combative toward you. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to say that.
No, I mean, and it's the truth, right? And my goal is to create heaven on earth, right? And whoever wants to be in that realm with me will be there, right? And it doesn't have to be the whole planet. It has to be where I'm standing today, right? And if I'm in a situation that doesn't feel good, I'm leaving, right? But my goal is my family, right? If I can make my household peaceful and happy and direct the people around me to live the best, most the happiest life that they possibly can, then I'm doing pretty good, right? And then like you said, it starts to work its way outwards, right?
Yep.
It all starts with you.
It all starts with you. Yep. I'm sure back in the day, you get triggered, and that's how these little online things go down. What do you do? Do you still get triggered today? Because we are still only be human. And how do you handle that? Like, what's your go-to when you start to feel the dark come in a little bit, or targeting, or you're like, wait, nope. How do you pull yourself back up again? Because it's quicker and quicker now, I bet.
Well, for me, I know this life is not real. Like, it's not, and someone triggering me, I have a very strong belief that if someone triggers me or upsets me, they are now controlling me. They now have control over my mind. And I don't let them have that. And if I start to get upset, my go-to is I step back. I do not respond. I do not respond to anything when I am upset or when I am triggered. I step back. I collect myself. Mine is I need alone time. I need to just chill and relax. And then I start to regroup, and I'm like, okay, well, they upset me because this happened. I'm like, well, they didn't upset me. I chose to allow them to upset my mind. It was my choice. So I take responsibility for that. This is nothing they said or did. This is something inside of me that is a memory of my past that happened to me. It's nothing that they did. I'm not mad at this person. And
that once you have that understanding, it all changes. It really does, and it takes a while, right? Like, 'cause if I'm angry, that means I've got work to do, right? And to be honest with you, the only times I really get triggered anymore is my kids, right? And a lot of it because I have expectations. I have expectations of them to live a better life than I did, and I pray that they don't have to learn the same lessons that I did, right?
Yeah.
And with generational curses, they're bound to learn a lot of the same lessons, right? Because it's a lot of the same behaviors, right? That your family have had for a long time, whether it be alcoholism or being promiscuous or whatever, right? It typically is something that runs in your family, and until you guys heal it and break that cycle, it's going to keep rearing its ugly head. But when you see your kids going through it, man, you really start going, oh my God. Like, I thought that a 5-year-old child was difficult, right? It's a lot worse when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, trying to go out and make it in the world, right? And then you start to realize some of your failures as a parent, right?
Yeah.
And then that triggers in you, and you start to go, oh my God, that was my cause, right? But through our kids, I think our kids are sent here to teach us to heal, right? Like
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
I'm just doing a lot of this is just yes.
It's difficult, right? But at the same time, you can't, and this is what I can guarantee is you cannot fix their problems.
No.
You have to let them go through the same lessons, or else all you're doing is you're taking their karma and making it yours, and you're pushing their lessons down further into life, and it could be 10 times worse, right?
Yes.
You can just be there for them as a foundation and as a person that they feel comfortable to come talk to. And you can't control them. You can't tell them what to do, but let them know that you love them, that you're there for them if they ever need you, and just give them a little bit of guidance and be the example for them to see how to do it. Because all we do is we emulate our parents. Like, I know Zach knows this is for me, my parents went through a traumatic fucking divorce. Like, I'm talking it went 10, 15 years in the court until it was finalized. I mean, just, you want to talk about two people that hated each other. So that was my example that I saw as a 4-year-old of how humans interacted. So then, I went through a divorce, and that was my biggest fear in the world, that my kids would go through anything like that. So I did everything that I could. I was like, I am not going to act like you want to talk about being able to soften yourself. That was probably my main thing, is that I fought off so many demons in my life because of what I wanted to do to my ex-wife, that I was like, no, I saw what happens when you act like this as a child, and I will not, my kids will not see that that's how you're supposed to react in situations like this. And I had to become the example that, the best that I could. I was not perfect. God knows that, when I had my fair share of things that I did that I would like to take back. But, my parents ended up hating each other until the day they died. They wouldn't be around each other at sporting events. They hated each other. And to the credit of my ex-wife as well, we looked at each other, and I said, no matter what happens, I said, we will not end up like my parents. We will not hate each other. We will not go through that, because so her and I still talk. You know what I mean? And there's a whole story behind that. But regardless, my kids now see that it is possible that you can go through stuff like that. And you can be mad at someone, but you can still communicate. You can still talk. You can still work it through. You don't need to hate each other. So that's just a big example of giving an example to your kids. And now, at the same time, you don't handle it perfectly. So you're still going to, as they say, everyone's like, oh, they want to be the perfect example for their kid. There is no perfect example.
No.
All you're doing is you're going to mess your kids up just in a different way that you were messed up. It's a sad reality. But you just have to be there for them and see that they are going to react a certain way. Like, you know what I mean? Like my kid is a different way than I was as a kid, based upon the way I handled it. So like, it's acceptance of this, and it's not feeling guilty. It's not feeling bad. We all, you know, quote unquote, mess up as parents.
Right.
But it's being there for them in those times when they're struggling too. So it's just.
And you know, the kid thing's now my mission. That's been my mission. I'm all about it. I'm now an educator in a New Earth Learning Center. Like it's happening because of all this crazies I went through. I'm like, oh, let's start with the kids. Let's empower them and teach them young so they can shift our future. But the simplest thing,
what they do.
Right. That's what they do. But even the whole perfect parenting, or, you know, parenthood comes with a lot of shame and guilt. The reality is, if you keep the simple truths out there, which is really everything's energy, everything is energy and frequency and vibration, the children, that's all they're picking up on. They are going to smell your shit first before you do. And they will have you empowered them enough to call you out on it, or do you scare them away? And that's our job. You know, we have to be raw and authentic even with our children, and you can't mask it. And that's the problem. I saw a lot of parents I knew out here, especially in that crazy 2020-ish area, saying one thing to their children, but their vibration was so opposite of what they're saying, their kids lost trust. So it wasn't matching. And they're like, I don't trust you now. I don't feel safe. And they don't say that, but you just see that go. So it's such an imperative thing to bring up these kids, because it sounds like we all had young ones during those 45 and 17th letter days and everything. And we switched out of that vibration and went into, well, now I'm going to start helping assist humanity. They felt that shift too. And they're not so scared. That wasn't a scary time anymore. It was like, oh, I can. So keeping it simple with ourselves and also with our children, I think, is huge.
I do love watching what you're doing, Heidi. It's you know, my wife owns a large child care center.
I know. I want to talk to her. I'm about to stalk
you two
her.
are definitely meant to work together. And you know, she has. It's an amazing place. She's had it for 40 or 30 years. The place has been around for 40.
Awesome.
And she's in a natural progression to start making it a nature-based center, which is kind of cool. Like, we started a greenhouse and are teaching the kids how to at least see the food being grown, right? And it's a healthy environment for these kids to see. Like, being outside is extremely important, right? So I think there's probably work for you and her to do, because I think that she's trying to rewrite her curriculum at some point to be more New Earth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That kind of frequency. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's reasons why we're connected, right?
I'm not surprised one bit. And it was all divinely timed. It had to be divinely timed. So that's the other beauty. And we know
nothing can happen too quickly, right?
Exactly. I want to throw in a nugget. First of all, it's been so long that I haven't even chimed in. I want to thank everyone who's been in the chat. Thank you so very much for your engagement. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share. It's my son's new thing for me. He's like, don't forget to say that. So I have to say that. He did it for me in an advert yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. He poked his head in to say it. And I didn't have to pay him. But I wanted to get a little, because I love, you know, we're all authentic, and I want to get these perspectives out. So Amber Light, I really liked what you're saying here, because respectfully, I partially agree with Nick, because I think what you were saying, Nick, is about what you see in others, you know, is what's going on with you. But she's right. There is a time when you see in something else going on in someone else, and that's their stuff. And that's where your boundaries come in. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. Transmute it. Just wanted to peek it. You didn't know if you wanted to reference that at all, especially someone who's an empath. Yeah. We're all empaths too, for sure. You, Nick. I mean, we definitely all are.
I mean, sometimes people are just assholes, and that doesn't mean they're just an asshole. Like some people, you know what I mean? Like there are people out there that touch kids, and you don't see that just because, you know what I mean? Like there is, like what she said, and thank you for that comment. I love it when people not only, like, I don't like when people, they don't just say, oh my God, I agree. Like they will push back from their own perspective. And I really appreciate that.
I think that's beautiful. And Castle Dude, and look at these. Hello, Darlene. Yep. Having children never came with instructions. Heck yeah. And honestly, they're an honor and a gift to have. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I was sure as hell surprised when mine came in. That shifted my entire world. And then I had to go at it alone with two littles. But they
Yeah,
are my awakening.
the day I found out about my first, my daughter Lexi, she's 21, was uh, I was working down in DC at the time, and it was September 11th, and the attacks happened that day. And I was about a mile away from the Pentagon and felt the explosion. And then after I finally decided to get home, and when I got into the door, I'm watching the footage with a buddy of mine, and my wife at the time screamed down the steps. She said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, why? What's up?" She said, "I'm pregnant." And that was a point in my life that I think might have started a lot of this thought process, was that I all of a sudden realized how life leaves and life comes in, right? And it's this kind of weird flow, and it was a weird a feeling of happiness, yet this miserable thing happened that day, right? It was a beautifully painful experience, right? But I think that we've had all these triggers that happen in our life through our lives, right? And it probably started at a young age, but a lot of us drank and drugged ourselves to death so that we quieted our minds, right?
Yep. Numb it out.
That wouldn't be you, would it be, Nick?
No.
No.
And you probably wouldn't believe this either, Nick, but I struggle with depression most of my life.
I think everybody does.
I think so too, especially the feelers and those that are just big emotions. Parasite Cleanse 2020. Just thought I'd say that. That's probably going to be our flag, though. I just said that. Now it's like medical strike. So I won't go down that road, but I think a lot of us are out there and we are able to pull those bootstraps up and go on the front line like we do, is because we've seen there, we've been there, we've done that, and we're just trying to assist others to navigate through it. And that seems to be like the universal thread here. I'm enamored, and I'm happy that we were able to pull this together. I'm not trying to wind it down. If we got some more things to say, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah.
I'm loving the flow. With that being said, so their gatherings, is huge. That's coming. But
you guys are coming to Florida this year, right?
I would love to come to Florida. I was there 2021. I wish I ran into you all then. I probably won't be there this year, but I'll make a point. I have family there. I have some pops are in Fort Myers. My dad's side. My dad's ashes are there. I brought his ashes
really?
there. So, yeah, so I have family there. So my giant and I, we did this huge road trip last summer, and we're like, we got to add Florida in there. And it was a crazy road trip. We're like, we'll do it next time. So we're going to just make it a Florida road trip. So we'll get there, and I will definitely hook you up.
Yeah. Nick's got to come.
He's been getting on me for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get out of here.
I'd love to come, man.
Yeah, you have a wonderful crowd. How big has your event grown to? It's probably going to double.
I didn't really count last year, but it was significant. I mean, I don't have an account. The way I look at it is it happened organically, and it's going to keep happening organically. I don't put a lot of effort in it, and it's designed in a way that basically you meet out on the beach for a day on the beach, and we celebrate celebrate each other and what we're here to do, right? And it's not, there's no speakers, there's no merchandise. It's a day of being, right? A day to be with each other, and it's been magical. I mean, the friends that I've made in that it's changed my life 100%. And it's my real family now, right?
And then you have that connection, and then you go back to your nests and you can still radiate and amplify all that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in Maryland, and Maryland's a difficult place to be.
And on a serious note, Zach, like, I know it's difficult from you, like maybe not difficult, but like it's a little different from your perspective when you're hosting an event like that, because I've done some stuff like that. But I'm telling you, the people that go there, you have no idea how well you're helping them. And I need to point that out to you.
Yeah.
And I need you to, I know you know that, but like really soak that in, because like there's several hundred people probably that go there. Like I've seen the pictures, and like I've talked to a couple of those people. They love going there because when you're finally around like-minded individuals, because from our perspective, you know, we have rather large followings or whatever. So we have a large group of people that we talk to. A lot of people on our pages, they have one or two people maybe.
Yeah.
They have, you know what I mean? Like they comment on your stuff and they might talk to those people. But for them to have an event that they can go to and feel comfortable in their own skin is absolutely huge for them. And I know you know that, but I needed to point that out because I know when, like, I've hosted not events like this, but I've hosted events before, and like you don't really understand the impact that you have while you're doing it. So I just needed to point that out.
I mean, to touch on what you were saying earlier, you know, you pour your heart out on the line, right? And that's what my Facebook page is for me. It's basically a journal of my life, right? You know, and the memes that I write are more to help myself than it is probably to help anybody else, and whoever else it affects, and good on it, right? Like but it allows me to express what's inside of me, right? And one thing I can tell you is that as a younger male, you're taught not to express your feelings and your shortcomings and the things that you've done poorly in your life, right?
Yep.
And that's what allowed me to actually heal, was putting my shit out there for the world to see, and nobody can judge me on it, right? If you do, that's on you, right? Like if you looked at my past, it's pretty storied. I lived a fun, chaotic life that many books could probably be written about. You know, I made a lot of money. I walked away from it, and the path that I walk now with minimal amounts of money is the happiest I could ever possibly be. I'm surrounded by people that I love, that love me, that aren't here because they want to get something from me, right? They're here because they're on a like-minded path, and that's a beautiful thing, man. Like I wouldn't trade this for the world, and there's not a day that passes now that I don't feel blessed. I honestly feel like I have a purpose for once in my life, right? And it doesn't revolve around making money. You know, it'd be nice if I could make some money doing it, but you know, I don't. But it's
so genuine though, that you don't do it for money. You do it from your heart. You do it from your soul.
It's selfless.
You pour yourself out there at 5 a.m. of like, because I do the same thing. Sometimes I'll wake up early and whatever's on my mind, it's just rambling out. And if I keep it inside my brain, it's horrible. I'll be thinking about it all day. Like I'll wake up, I'll feel a certain way, or like I'll read a meme or whatever. Next thing I know, like I'll post something and like I'll just feel better. And then like, and it's not just like, it's not keeping that feeling, that emotion, that connection with other people, because other people will connect with that. They're like, damn, I was feeling that too. Like I'm not alone. There's someone out there that thinks like me, that can say this, that's not afraid to say it. And what it does is it builds confidence in them. And then all of a sudden they're able to say it. They're able to speak it. And that's like that's a major thing that I have figured out throughout this path, even through politics. When we first started, how we connected originally, we started connecting over politics. By us being able, and others to be able to stand up and speak out, it gave confidence to other people to be able to do it as well. And you've seen it grow. You've seen it get bigger. Like it's massive. Pretty much everyone's talking about politics now. It's only a matter of time until people really start. And now self-improvement's getting huge too. So like, it's only a matter of time till people are open, honest, authentic, and realistic about themselves. Especially what Zach touched on is I can only, like, I'm not saying that one is more important than the other. I can just speak my perspective and understanding of men, is that we were never allowed to talk about ourselves. We never could. Nobody, like, if you talk to your friends about it, you were the G word, or you were weak, you were a coward, you were the P word. I'm not going to say it, but like you were those, and like your friends looked down on you, but yet at the same time, they're going through the same shit you were. But it was culturally accepted to speak like that to each other. And now I'm like, the world has changed. Maybe it's just the people that's around me, but like my core group of friends, we will talk about our shit with each other. Like I have a group of men around me, and Zach's included in this group of men that I could be like, dude, I'm having a shitty day. Like this is happening, and there's no judgment. There's nothing involved. And like, I like putting my post out like that so people can be okay with speaking their own mind of like, oh, I can see someone else is doing it. So it makes them feel like it's okay and they don't feel alone. And it's important for men to be able to do that. I'm not saying it's not important for women. I'm just saying I don't understand their perspective of the world. I never will. I'll do my best. I will try, but I will never understand what it's like to be a woman. So I will never speak on it. So I'm just speaking as a male. And especially with me, because when I was a child, I was an emotional child. I feel deeply. I think deeply. Like I have both of those aspects. And like I was never allowed to speak up. I was never allowed to talk. I was never allowed to do any of that stuff. So I know what it's like to feel like that. And so Facebook essentially became my journal where I could just speak whatever I want. And it's usually things that I've already gone through. I have overcome it. I've accepted it. And I put it out there. And if anyone talks shit on me or wants to judge me, I don't care. Like Zach has accepted his past. He speaks on his past. I've accepted my past. I'm sure you have as well, Heidi. And like,
Oh yeah.
I would like, you can't hold that against me. Like I don't
Exactly.
go ahead.
Thank you for saying that.
Hold it against me. You are showing who you are. And like your insecurities and all of this stuff. Dude, I am who I am. I don't care. This is who I am. This is what I've been through. I'm not scared of it. I'm not afraid of it. It has made me who I am. And like, it's a very empowering position. And I want people to know that it's okay.
And the freedom of putting it all out there is that you no longer have to hide behind a mask, right? Like we as human beings put on all types of different masks. You know, I'm Rico Suave, or I'm, you know, rich, or I'm, you know, popular, or whatever, right? Or I can fight, right? Like every man has to have that persona, right? And once you take that the mask off and decide to walk around the world as yourself, like at first it's scary, man. It's and that's a lot. That's when a lot of the healing starts to happen, is when you're real with yourself, right? And you go, I'm an asshole, right? Like I treat people terribly, right? And no wonder why everybody wants to hang out with me, right? Like I think I'm better than everybody, right? And then once you finally can be truthful about that, that's when you get to heal, and then you start to see these small little changes, right? Like, oh man, I got some friends that actually want to hang out with me now, right? That aren't looking for something from me, right? They want, they genuinely like me, right? And when your I don't give a fuck is broken, like you can get to a place where it doesn't matter what somebody thinks. It only matters what I think, right?
Yep.
You have that little voice in your head, you know, all the whatever you've done in your past. I guess I definitely have a past, but there's some storylines that become hamster wheels in your brain, and they're just they're bothersome. And it's only until you keep it simple and keep it true and just say, well, I allowed that to happen. That's when you can just give the power, you just like detach. Well, I allowed it to happen. That sucks to be me in that time. Next, you know, forgive and move on. But it's when you're constantly making it about the other person and having a victim card is when you take ownership. And I think we've all done that. I think we've done that online. We've shown people how we've taken ownership, and we're trying to show people how, don't worry, you can do it. Take ownership. It'll be okay.
That's one of the things I love about Nick, though, is like we'll just send each other messages every once in a while and poke each other, right? and call each other little names and whatever. But it you know, at the same time, it's because, you know, there's an actual love there that we care about one another, and we take the time to check in on each other, right? And that's a neat experience to have with another man, right? Most men aren't vulnerable like that, right?
Nope.
Well, I salute you both for this big time, for being just men out there, but being fathers too. So you're emulating and modeling the behavior of the man, the divine masculine male energy that is so desperately needed on this planet. It's been tried to get wiped out. You know, the alpha male was trying to get taken down, but you are proving, you're
Mhm.
proof positive
It's
that it's okay.
changing. The men are
Yeah,
coming
it's
back
changing.
slowly.
Yeah.
And
On that note, what is your take? What is not like a percentage or anything, but I know we're all confident in the rise of humanity, but where do you think we're at with that? Like,
You know,
what do you? Mhm.
I go many different ways with this. Like either this is all going to happen literally at a blink of an eye where everybody is just woken up overnight. Like that's a possibility, right? Or there's a possibility that this is just going to be a long process that we all are on, that we are, basically we were that rubber band that was stretched so far out, and now it's being released, and we're going to start heading, and the stretched out was perversion, right? And now we're going to be released, and we're going to head back into the times that we were more loving and kind and humble, right? I hope that it's not a long drawn out process like that, right? I mean, we are definitely on some type of accelerated healing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you could be sitting in your house and all of a sudden you're hit with some wave of strange feelings that you didn't even realize it was an issue, right?
Yeah.
And then you deal with it for a day or two or whatever, right? And that's when you have to go into your coping mechanisms of grounding yourself or finding support or taking a hot bath or whatever it is, right? However you calm yourself, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know where humanity lies, right? I do know that there are waves of awakenings that are happening, right? You can see it on our pages. There's times when our pages become very active, right? And then there's times where it becomes slow. And I think it's these periods when something happens in the world, and it's typically a life-changing event that's nasty, right? Maybe a war or the incident that happened in Hawaii, right? That's those trigger points that hit people in the head and go, take a look at this, and then they start looking at it and they go, this isn't right. Right. And then all of a sudden they start to look for answers, and that's when they are filtered through our pages. And then they start to go, oh, you're saying something that I'm thinking, right? And that's that the collective consciousness is becoming stronger, right? And we're all starting to realize that, like, our thoughts are very similar, and there's these waves of thoughts that are moving through our collective that we're all like, oh my God, I was just thinking that. Like, I think throughout this week, I didn't know what our conversation was going to be tonight, but like throughout the week, I'm like having these conversations that we're having right now in my head, right? So it was like this conversation needed to happen. So that's why the three of us are sitting here, right?
Yeah, I agree. It was like a ding, ding, ding. Oh my gosh. Yes, let's do this.
so my perspective of that. Now, also, I have a background and understanding of astrology. So from my perspective, and even before this, I believe that we are all just natural. We are energy. We're energy beings, and there is a natural energy there. And my mind literally runs on cycles and patterns. It's because like everybody's human being. Like I noticed in myself, I have a natural cycle. I have a natural pattern. Then I started seeing it in everyone else. And then you start extrapolating that out farther and farther. And then all of a sudden, like you start seeing patterns of people that are going through the same exact thing that you are. And it's like, it starts to make you wonder, and it starts to make you question a bigger thing. And then you start to realize, like with astrology, I know not everyone's into it, but like you start to understand that the planets, they're rotating around Earth, and all of this, like everything's rotating around. And you start to notice patterns of when certain planets are around us, certain energies are hitting our human beings, and we start responding differently. And then you start seeing that there's groups of people that are responding the exact same way that you are. So like I used to think astrology was bullshit. I used to think it was predictive programming. And the way I confirmed it with me was that I was so self-aware of myself, of how I was feeling every week. And then I would go back and I would read old astrology posts, and they would be like, this energy is coming in, this alignment or whatever is happening, and you're probably going to feel like this, and this. And I was like, son of a bitch, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Like to a freaking T, that's the themes and patterns that I was going through. So my perspective is, and when it goes to when Zach said it's either going to happen quick or slowly, my perspective, it's a natural progression. We are natural energy beings that are just going through the natural cycles of Earth, because it's just like you can look through history. Every dynasty has fallen at around 250 years. Why is that? And like you can go into many different reasons why, the exact human reasons why, and all this shit, but dynasties last for about 250 years because astrological alignments, they go around every 250 years, and when it comes back around, you start to fall apart. It's the same thing in our life. It's Pluto that goes around, and it lasts about 250 to 260 years to rotate around the sun. So what it does is you have a starting point and it goes all the way around the sun, and then you end up at an end point. It's the same thing with like human beings. Like a lot of us, from the age of 27 to 30, our life was probably hell. Almost every single one of it. It's called a Saturn return. It's your placement of when you were born, where the position of where Saturn was at in the sky when you were born. And in between 27 and 30 years, that's how long it takes Saturn to rotate around the sun, that you end up essentially back at the same point you were when you were born into this life. And everything falls away from you of what you're not supposed to have in this life. Like if you were creating like a relationship, we'll say, with a person that wasn't supposed to be in your life, they were toxic, they were whatever, that falls apart at around the age of 27 to 30. It might be financial, it might be your house, it might be your kids, it might be something like that, but there's themes of that like that. And it's just natural energies of this life. It's like, and there's natural life cycles. Like this world is literally cycles and patterns of behavior that just constantly repeat themselves. How many times have you heard history just repeats itself?
Yeah.
Like we have all of these sayings, we have all of this information, and now like you start to see it in yourself, and then you start to see it in groups of people, and then all of a sudden you start to see it in states, you start to see it in countries, you start to see it in the world. So it's only like that understanding calmed my ass so much, because I was so stressed, like, oh my God, this world's going to shit, blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm like, it is a natural cycle. It is a natural pattern. And like Zach said, when there's catalyst events that happen. And what it does is like you were starting to think something, and like then all of a sudden it happens, and you're like, oh shit. It like catches you, and you start paying attention to the world again, and then you start to question it, and then you start looking for answers out there, and then you start seeing people that are posting things like that.
I mean, it's like Keith said, this is biblical, right? And if you look at the world, you can literally see the Bible playing out again, right? Yeah. And it seems like probably, I don't know if this story just keeps playing and on a loop, right? Where we can, it's different characters playing the same roles, or what, right? It's just a little bit different storyline, but we are definitely at a point of the Bible that we are all aware of, right?
So it's kind of like, okay, so you know how like we talk about family dynamics,
right?
And so the family dynamic keeps happening over and over again until somebody comes into the story and changes that story, just like what you're saying.
Shut up,
and then I'll let you go again. But like that's what the Bible's doing. You're going through the same shit over and over again until humanity does something different.
Yes.
And changes the story.
And that was
like, just like I kept talking about politics all the time. I kept being fighting. I kept being angry. And all of a sudden I was like, I need to change the script. I need to change this shit. Now all of a sudden my story in my life is very different now because I changed it. And what Zach's is getting to is the same. It's the same cycle. It's just on a humanity scale. And that brought me so much calm when I understood that. I was like, it's just a matter of time. This shit will sort itself out. Like humanity will still live. I feel we're gonna live again. Like I believe in reincarnation and all of that shit. Like we've gone through this before. That's why some of this is natural to us. Like we've lived this out before, and that's why we're changing this time. Last time we probably fought down to the bitter end, and then we went through our own personal hell, and this time we're changing.
So the way I like to look at it is that we are on the highest timeline now, right? And I think that we've played this game many times, and we get to certain points and we fail as humanity and the game gets reset and we almost like a game of Mario Brothers, right? Where you lose, you got to start back at the beginning,
That's
right?
a good one, man. It's good.
And I think this is the go around that we know what the final move is. We just have to get to it, right? And it's literally who knows how many times we've played the game to get here, but as long as you choose to be on that highest timeline, that will be the one that you finish with, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are not choosing to follow their highest timeline. I think that they're going to have a different outcome, right? And that's that, like Hugh said, the ending's not for everyone. And that's not that they're not as evolved as we are or not as smart or as good as we are. It's a literal evolutionary choice, right? Like, am I ready for this? Do I want to be ready? I kind of still like to live in a karmic loop, right? I like to do bad things and learn lessons, right? Like, and that's okay, right? That doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? Or I like to make mistakes and have to restart, right? I like this game. Unfortunately, some of us have put the hardest level on, it seems like, on this game, and we're white knuckling it, right? But
I love that.
You get to a point where you realize like you can control the game, right? And you control the game with your mind, right? Like you can sit here and get into a really bad situation. Like my daughter, she injured herself really badly a few months back, and she was flown to shock trauma, and it was a moment that in my younger version I would have handled much differently, right? I would have really allowed it to affect me, but in my mind I sat there and I said, this isn't in this timeline. Nothing's going to happen to her. I know she's protected, and I know that I'm here, and the purpose is for something different than her injury, right? And then I'm sitting in the hospital room, and I realized what the purpose was, and her mom was locked in the room with me. My ex was locked in the room with me, and the three of us were in the room, and Cameron, my youngest, is in bed, and I realized that there was healing that needed to be done, right? And there was a lot of difficult conversations that happened in that room, right? And there's still unresolved issues, right? But God was affording us this time where we had no choice but to air out some dirty laundry, right? And in hopes that she would forgive me for my life and what she blamed me for, right?
Yep.
And a lot of it's could be my fault, and a lot of it's probably her fault, right? And the fact was we weren't meant to be together, and the reason why I chose to leave her was so that my kids would actually have the opportunity to see one or both of us be in a loving relationship, modeling something that they would long to have for themselves, right? And that was my mission, was to find somebody to model a good relationship with, and fortunately I found it, right? And now my kids get to see it, and it made my choices that much more relevant, but somebody else is very upset about it, right? So we have to look at these things as opportunities rather than oh my God, the world's ending, right?
Good point.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's what the 2020 era of the world shutting down here. I live at a place where we're targets. I mean, the planet cannot stand LA. And I'm like, wait, the kids are here. There's a lot of healing that has to happen. How are we going to do this? And shifting that focus to just getting those difficult conversations done with people. Everyone was able to take this in breath and start to make choices that can literally shift and move mountains. And my start was to start apologizing or making amends with things that were nagging or things that were those hamster wheel moments. And I'm sorry, I'm still taking it back, because that moment you had, here your daughter's going through something, but you also saw it as a beautiful learning opportunity with your family unit. I think that's
because ultimately, this is the other thing that I realized through all of this is like, we were ripped. A lot of our families have been ripped apart through all of this, right? And I think that we have a responsibility to try to fix these things, right? Like we in an ultimate world, we'll have happy families, right? We're not going to be fighting over politics. We're not going to be fighting over, medical choices and things like that. And we have to get to a point where we heal, not just ourselves. You have the micro and then you have the macro, right? Like we have to heal your family unit the best you can, right? And I think that at some point, all will be restored, right? I think that at some point, everybody's going to have their awakening experience, right? And they're going to get to a point where they too want to heal themselves. Some might not do it now. Some might be 10 years from now. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in the next year, we're going to have some significant things that come out that people are not going to be able to shy away from anymore. It's going to be in your face, and it's designed to be that scare event, right?
Yeah.
That will startle you into your awakening, whether you want it or not, right? You don't really have a choice. You can't hide from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that.
But there's so many of us that have done so much shadow work now that we're able now to assist when folks have to go through that. I'm not
going to say it won't be easy for all of us. It's going to be hard on everybody, right?
Oh, maybe, for sure.
I've never read the Bible, but for some reason I know things, right? But I know there's going to be a period where we're all taken to our knees, right? And I think that there's going to be an event that is going to take us to our knees, whatever that might mean.
You think it is? You think it is going to be one particular event that?
I do. Yeah, we are reaching a crescendo here for sure. I mean, everything is coming to a head. I mean, there's no way to say otherwise. I mean, I won't be happy if Mr. T is brought back and he's, president, right? Like that's not the end for me. Like I don't care about politics. Right. I want something much bigger than that. I won't be happy with that result, right? Like I won't stop because we won an election, right? That doesn't matter to me, right?
Right.
What matters to me is that humanity has a fair shake in life, right? Where we all live an abundant life where we aren't struggling, we aren't starving, we aren't desperate, and our kids aren't at risk of being touched or messed with in their minds or whatever, right? Like we deserve to live in a world that we have a fair shot, right? Where we aren't just constantly you take a step ahead and they kick you back 10 feet, right? It's a bad world that we're in, right?
Right.
And I don't think that all of us awaken like this just for an election to be overturned, right? It's going to be more significant. I mean, we are at a point where, at a bare minimum, we are headed to a World War III scenario where I think that the world will have nukes aimed at each other, right?
I don't know.
They're not going to go away quietly.
They're not going to go away quietly, and it's not going to be like, okay, we win.
No, but let me throw this on the table, or like my buddy Robert Bauer says, let me throw a turd on the table. Let's see what you do with it. But you know how you're referencing getting on your knees and having your own personal awakening. From just the time we've been talking here, I've heard our tales of us doing that, and it shifted us and changed our lives. What if that is the knee drop? What if that is, and that's we're just kind of not waiting, but it's about humanity one by one having that knee drop moment and coming to their own. And
I pray you are right, ma'am. I do pray you're right. But like Q said, scare event necessary, right? I think that there's
well, haven't you been seeing them one after the other?
But listen, the only way but there's been so many of those and not that many are getting it, right? Gotcha. The only way it's going to happen is something significant, whether it's that there's a revelation about the kids, right? And I still do think that my phone's about to die, by the way. That the kids will be the catalyst of change once people realize that what's happening is truthful and there's proof laid in front of our eyes, and it's way worse than any of us even could probably imagine, right? And what would be a better catalyst than kids to unite humanity, right?
Mm-hmm. Like this, I think it's about the children. We're here to go through all of this in Wayshow and show them, give them the floor plan to be like, now take the baton and run.
What do you think, Nick Reader?
So my thoughts on this, and like I said, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. If you go back and what was it, Atlantis? They were very technologically advanced civilization. So what happens when you give humans a lot of technology and a lot of weaponry, and then you start to rebel against them? Those people who have the technology, those people who have the power, those people who have the money, those people who have the weapons, they are not going to go quietly. I think we're more in a way I'm in line with Zach, is that I think we are going to reach the precipice of a world war, of nuclear destruction, because there has been too much talk about it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think humanity on a whole is going to be put into a position that we will decide if we are going to back the person who's going to hit that button to take us to a nuclear war. Because that is an event that nobody can deny. You can't escape that. Everyone's going to be involved with that. Everyone's going to have an opinion on it, and that will decide the course of human nature going into the next cycle of human nature. Are we going to obliterate each other because of ego, or are we going to drop our ego and be tired of fighting and be tired of war and being tired of that cycle, and we say, no, we're not going to go to war, and do we end that cycle? I think that's the point we're going to reach.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of there with Brian, because I dabble in the experience your contactee world and stuff, and I just feel like the nukes were taken out so long ago. But more than anything, I believe
maybe if it's not even real, if it's media propaganda,
right? Wag the dog.
it may not even be real, but if it's media propaganda to get humans to that point, to scare the shit out of them,
that makes sense. That I align more with that. And
I don't know what will happen, but that's just, I'm not saying what you're saying is true or it isn't true. I don't know, but something like that I think will happen.
I mean, we know that the nukes were deactivated.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, man. And that's what it said, is that the Black Federation had
realistically.
And the question is, did they ever really even exist, right? A lot of that stuff is, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And nuclear weapons are nothing really compared to the weaponry that actually exists. So that's just a talking point by, honestly, like, normal people. They're terrified of that. They don't even understand that nuclear weapons is technology of shit from 50, 60 years ago. We don't need that to terrify people. Like,
you should see the sonic booms that come out here, man.
The shit that we have now.
Stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one of the craziest weapon out there, which all of us, we get a gold star for handling well, is freaking social media. We've done a wonderful job handling that weapon. But I want to talk about something else that I think trumps it all. Well, not all. I mean, kind of in a way. It's our high frequency. I really feel like it's almost like our shield. Like it's our Obi-Wan moment. If we can get our frequency to that that point and get that going and teach others how to do that too, I think there's our little force field of protection. What do you think? And it'll just take down the dark.
That goes with kind of what I'm saying, is if you have that, that high vibrational of not being in war, not being in lack, not being in scarcity, if the collective consciousness of the planet is above that, that's the kind of like the tipping point of this world. Are we going to succumb to war, or are we going to have our vibration up high enough? And that's a lot of the reason, because what you're saying, I feel is very accurate. And that's what's a big shift. That goes also with like the massive shift of my content online and the way that I treat other human beings, is because if you don't want war on this planet, you cannot be having a war with other people. You cannot be having
or within
a war
yourself,
inside
right?
of yourself.
Exactly.
You can't.
All of this comes down to what's happening to us internally, right? Are we beating ourselves up? Because if we're beating ourselves up, it's going to happen all around us, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
If you're at war with yourself, you're at war with other people, and that gives the people in power consent to go to war because you will allow it to happen because you think war is the only freaking way to live on this planet. So
when I said we're going to have an event like that, we got to remember that this is all like Nick said, it's all propaganda, right? It's going to appear, it will appear like, you know, and this is when you start to compare everything. Q always says scare event. Then you have, you know, the Bible talks about rumors of wars and things like that, right? There's going to be a point that the world is probably going to feel like we're going to lose, right? And at the last second, something will shift that we realize we actually won, right?
Yep.
I'm picking up now what you're all putting down.
Yeah,
First I was like, wait a second.
I'm not pushing any fear, right? Like it, but I think
no fear.
It is our darkest moments that we are able to find ourselves, right? And I think that humanity is going to have to be taken to a dark moment in order to find itself, right? It's
because think about yourself. When you go to your darkest moment, what is your catalyst to change? When you are so fucking tired of your own bullshit, is the only your darkest moment is the time humanity is going to be taken to their darkest moment as a collective. And then they will decide what they want to do. And we have chosen to decide to not succumb that. Like we right now, I mean, realistically, Zach, we could be raging alcoholics. We could be wife beaters. We could be all sorts of shit, you know, narcissists, all sorts of crap. Like we could have chosen that path when we were at our worst, you know, abusers and all that shit. But we were put in that blender, that pressure cooker, and we chose a different path. And that's what I feel humanity will be put into as a collective.
I mean, if you look at the collective now, it's amazing how far we can actually be pushed before, and nobody's doing anything. It's like, what the hell are we doing? We're sitting around waiting for a savior, right? And that's the problem with this world is we got, you know, a storyline at the southern border that I think is designed to scare the shit out of people, right?
All these little things.
What's they doing here, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's designed to wake up a certain portion of the population, right? And you know, I find it strange that people aren't acting. Like people aren't going, this is not okay, right? Like we're just sitting around going, like somebody else.
It's not affecting their personal life yet. Only when it affects their personal life do people give a shit.
Yeah.
True. Good one.
So like, honestly, so, and it sounds terrible, but I'm going to be real with you. I live in Pennsylvania. Like, to me, the border, I don't see it every day. It doesn't impact my day-to-day. Yes, it is a massive thing, and it will eventually impact me, and I totally get that. But there's things in Pennsylvania that impact me, so my focus is there instead of on the border. So that's kind of like something you have to keep in mind as to why people aren't paying attention. You got into Texas and Arizona, it's a massive thing. But you come up north, it's not that big a deal.
Well, until it is, right?
Until exactly 100%, Zach. Until it is.
Or if you're in LA and it's been a big deal for like 50 years.
that reminds me of my early days of pushing truth. It was like I would talk to people and they'd be like, "Oh, I get that, but what am I going to do about it?"
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big thing, and it's kind of what I don't like how the Bible has been perverted in the Christian faith is that Jesus is going to come back and save us. Our Lord and Savior. Or how many times have you, especially in America, they think a savior, they think somebody is just going to come and save them. That's not how it works. Like you have to go out there, you have to do the work, you have to save yourself. And I think that is massive.
God wants us to be empowered, right? He doesn't want us to be slaves, right? We're supposed to be sovereign. Yeah, he created this place to be heaven, right? And we've kind of fucked it up, right? And now we're learning our lesson, right? And I think that's part of the lovely thing. You know, God created Satan, and the reason why he created Satan wasn't to necessarily torment us. It was more to redirect our path back towards God, right? And it's kind of like the bowling alley, right? Where you put bumpers on the bowling alley, and you know you roll the ball down the lane, and sometimes it'll go to the left and it'll hit that bumper and push you back to the right, and then it'll hit the bumper on the right. And the goal is to go straight down the center of the lane, right? And that's the way I look at darkness, is that, yes, it's designed to make you feel very uncomfortable, right? But in all of that, it's designed to push you back closer to the light, right? But I think that there's also the people that fall so far into the light that they aren't actually healing themselves, right? They're walking around going, "Oh, I'm pushing their happiness," right?
Yes.
But deep down inside, they're just not dealing with the darkness that's in them, right?
Yes, they're hiding behind the persona of
Right.
love and light, but
So, like, the one thing, what I kind of like, maybe this is not the way to view God, but I view God as like a parent. And so I put myself in my own parental things when I look at my children and they're going through tough times. Well, if I jump in and save them, what does that do? That teaches them for the rest of their life that somebody's going to come and save them. Someone's going to take care of their problem. They never learn to fend for themselves. Everyone's sitting here like, oh, we need Jesus to come back. God, come save us. Well, if that happens, you never learn how to fend for yourself. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it's shitty. But the worst times of my life, when I had to figure it out myself and nobody came and saved me, I overcome that shit now and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me anymore. And I teach other people how to overcome that. That's kind of how I view God, is like letting things play out naturally by itself. Yes, and it's just like, as you're a parent, you allow your kid's life to play out by itself, and you're kind of there to guide them, kind of there to help them, assist them, but you can't jump in and save them.
Right. That's it. As an educator, what's interesting, I have 8, 9-year-olds. And last semester, I was talking all about illumination, everything, vibration, frequency, and everything, but the light within, because we're going into winter and the light within will bring you through the darkness and all these little terms and things. And there are this is a class of some read the Torah, some read the Bible, some have never heard of either, but they know this and they know this and they know how it affects others. And I'm like, these are children that are sponges. I'm not going to give them a name. So we just do like universal light and source and all that is, and they're God. They're all little gods. We're all little gods. But the beauty is they get the concept of dark versus light. They get it easier than anybody adults I've really met, but they understand the positive, the negative, the light versus dark. And they as well go through their own little wars right there. So focusing on, I don't know where I was wrapping that up to, something to tie into what you just said, but I got distracted. I think it's hitting that mark.
Kids are definitely closest to God, right? We've all just forgotten.
I know. You know what? That was it. I think I was trying to explain myself because I still get triggered. I get triggered by religious things and words and stuff because that's my programming. So now that I'm in charge of children, even with Steiner and pedagogy and Rudolf Steiner, who's very much mind, body, will, energy, everything, they encourage sharing the Hebrew stories and all these stories, but also Native American and mythology, because he's like, it's all the same messages delivered a different way. And the reality is it all comes back to source. And so I'm just trying to traverse, I guess, without, I do have a hard time saying it. It's so crazy. Hi to the chat. Hi, Dee Dee. I see you over there.
Here's a wild way. I can't fully explain this, so I can't formulate all my thoughts on this. But here's a wild way that I view God and I view this world. If you think of and Satan and the devil, if you think of it as one giant brain experiment, that we are all just basically inside God's brain, like inside of us, there's good and there's bad. So like each one of us is essentially a fragment of God playing out a scenario in his brain. Because you have dark in yourself, and that's what Satan is. And Satan is essentially the dark side of God's brain. And then you have all the angels is the light side of God's brain. And I kind of I can't fully explain that shit yet. I haven't been able to formulate all of those thoughts, but that's kind of like how I see the world at the same time. And that's, I don't know if it's real or not, but that's kind of because we are just part of God. We are just a fragment of God. All of us are.
The way I look at God is this way: is when you're in your mom's womb, right? You are provided everything. You are given nourishment, you're given warmth, you're given love, and you're surrounded by a being that you don't know exists, right? But you are provided all of this, right? And at the end of your existence in your mom's womb, you are pushed through a birth canal, and that is you're going through a traumatic experience, right? Where all of a sudden you're forced out into a new world, right? And you're expected to breathe and feed yourself and learn how to walk and get educated and pay bills and so forth. But when you're sitting in that womb, you're going, there's nothing beyond this, right? Like, I'm in this womb and that is it. But in actuality, your mother is your provider, right? And I suspect that we're in a realm that's similar to that. Where we just can't put it into words, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yes.
Once we transition from this realm to another, it will make sense, right? Whether we're an atom within a larger entity, right?
Yeah.
You don't know, right? You could be a red blood cell or whatever, right?
Yes. A porcupine.
It's also kind of like a fish who's in a puddle, and then all of a sudden you put them in a lake. Like, they think the puddle is all there is in this world.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you put them in a lake, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" It's kind of, that was also like how I felt when I started to understand a spiritual connection I'm like, holy shit, there is a whole nother world that I didn't know existed that essentially controls this physical world. And I'm like, that's why, like, a lot of things I started to escape from politics, because I was like, this spiritual thing controls the politics. So why am I concerned with politics right now? I want to know, like, I left the puddle and went into the lake, and I was like, oh, I need to figure this out.
Yeah. When I started to actually use like alchemy, and I could tell, shift someone's energy, or, like Truman Show, you're driving, you're having a bad day and you hit red lights, you get in a car accident, whatever, but you go positively and you get the green lights. And when
it works.
I was like, I'm a magician. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone has this power. Why are they not telling us about this amazing power? And then the whole narrative in everything went politically wise. I'm like, I did my work. I did the front lines warrior. I took the bullets. I took the arrows. I transmuted them light. And now they can play in the political arena now. I know source. I know it. I know we're good. And I know what I felt while doing the frontline warrior stuff. My belief system is still strong and still intact. Like, I could see the truth, let the games play. But feeling that alchemy, I think, was a big shift. And now teaching kids how to use it. I think that's
for all we know, we're going to wake up one day and we're going to realize that this is all just merely a dream, right? And I have a friend. He's a Cree Indian. And he says that we are all on a spaceship right now in sleep chambers, and that this is all just a movie playing out for us while we are traveling, and that our Earth was lost long ago, and that we're waiting for our new Earth to be born. And there could be possibility to that, right? That we could just be sitting on a holodeck somewhere with a VR headset on, and we're passing time, right? Like, you don't know.
Maybe we all did some hella drugs, and then all of a sudden this is what we're experiencing. Just like when you do DMT and you get the other side, and then you come back, you're like, whoa.
That was a hell of a trip.
You're like, damn, that was a hell of a trip.
Pretty
well,
sure
I tell you what,
hang out with you, Nick.
I tell you, this was one hell of a trip. Now, I think we probably should narrow down, make them wanting more. And plus, my first guests are going to kill me. They're like, you said 90 minutes. We had to keep it to 90 minutes. But I knew this would flow beautifully. And I'm so grateful to all y'all in the chat. I see you all. So thank you very, very much. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And
there you
fellas,
go.
I do think we could champion this conversation way further. And if we can bring Amy into the mix, I would love to do a part 2 with you all.
I'm down.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Thank you for providing this beautiful space to speak. It's a nice thing.
Absolutely. Well, the mission, everything just keeps lining. It just lines up. We just have to keep stepping into it. And
You just go
as
with
it
the flow.
pivots, you go with the flow. I mean,
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be sitting here. I was, serving smoothies in January 2020 on set, dropping red pills to producers and people that didn't ask for information, but I was giving it to them. And now here I am with a bunch of like minds.
I'm gonna have to connect you with my wife. I think you and my wife have work to do.
I do too, and I'm so excited. I got little goosebumps because I saw her name float by. She helped someone out there because Nick's in PA, and someone was asking who's in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
We will, and Sue, we're going to connect absolutely. Well, fellas, where can they reach you? They're all talking to you from your pages. Is there any last minute things you want to share, or if some of the friends don't know you yet, where can they find you? Zachary, where are you at? Are you mostly Facebook?
Zachary Fisher. That's the best. I don't do websites and things like that. I'm pretty simple.
And you're not on like Instagram. You're not on all the other things.
I'm on there, but I don't really mess with it. Like Facebook's the way I connect with people. I was sent here to connect people, and that's like Instagram and so forth. I don't feel like I could connect that way with like I do on Facebook. It's about the personal connection for me.
I agree with that. Yeah. Because I'm just on Facebook, just my name, Nick Reeder. I also have like Instagram and YouTube, but I don't really use it. It's Counter the Narrative is the name. But like Zach said, I like Facebook because I like the personal connection. I don't put out videos. I don't do like YouTube channels and stuff like shows and stuff like that. But but also at the same time, I know Zach does too. I like coming on like other people's podcasts. Like I did my podcast for a little bit. It just wasn't my thing. I like being a guest. I don't like having a set schedule. I just kind of like going with the flow. I just do what's happening, how I'm feeling.
Perfect. Oh, that's beautiful. And I love it. I love that we're all still championing Facebook because I mean, that sucker's been coming through the ringer and we're still there. 2 pages in. Some have 30. How many do you have, Zachary? It's just the what? Is that your original?
I think I was 15 or something when I last time. And then the funny thing is, like now I'm speaking from my heart center. I don't get in trouble. So it's kind of weird, right?
Right? That's the key. That's my rebooted page.
As long as I've had an account yet, which it's pretty cool to see memories show up for once.
I love the Facebook memory bumps. That's the best part.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yes, it's so awesome. I'm like, I just repost, told you so, but I don't have to say told you so because that's low vibrational thinking.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, here it is again in case you missed it the first time.
But it also, to me, it shows me how much I've grown in the last year, right?
I can't even look at my memories. I can't read my old posts. I can't I go back and read some of my politics stuff and I'm like, ugh.
That's funny. That's cute. Oh, Zachary, tell us one more time about the event in July, like the dates and how
July
people contact you.
And 14th. It's in Indian Shore. So we're gonna have a flyer out. I got Dylan Monroe, the map maker. He's making the flyer. We'll have that out, but it's the 13th and 14th. And our friends are going to be having an event like 4 days, the 4 days beforehand, and then I guess they're talking about bringing a bus of people over. So
yeah,
it'll be pretty significant this year.
A week of it. That's amazing. Well, if ever you all find yourself on the West Coast, you always have a home. So I'll make you some cookies and smoothies. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you, fellas. I'll say goodnight after we go. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I have Aaron Moriarty and Dustin Shuda. And we're going to talk Wisconsin ETs and things and all things ET. So if that resonates, chime in. But also, please hit like and subscribe. We're going to have our gentleman on again, and we are going to tackle. I also have coming up Jason Frank and Sandra McGellis. She's in DC. Yep, Jason. Trying to Will Garrity, answer your messages.
Yeah, Will's been sort of MIA.
He's got to do his thing. I get it.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll post who's coming up
He's got a girl now. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So his vibration's rising.
Right.
Everyone, please have a beautiful night. Sending you so much love and thank you for sharing in this frequency with us. So cheers. Bye, everybody.